This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
We're going to stay on these special elections in Florida, as well as that judicial race in Wisconsin. Joining us now for a panel discussion are David Katz, political strategist and former assistant U.S. attorney, and Matt Klink, Republican strategist and political analyst. Gentlemen, it's great to have both of you on today. Let's start with this race down in Florida, all right? The 1st and the 6th district, they're deep red, but we have seen Democratic candidates putting up this multi-million-dollar fight here. David, how are you reading the Democratic Party's chances?
I think the Democrats' chances are very good, which is startling. It's really a testimonial to how terribly Trump has managed the economy so far. Remember, he was going to do something to lower prices. Everything he's done has raised prices. Now tariffs are going to shoot prices through the roof. The stock market is down. And on top of that, these jobs, many of them government jobs in these areas, are insecure. And finally, the final blow is the attacks on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, which means a lot to the older people in these districts. So it's startling to say that 30 plus Trump districts may have so repudiated Trump and his dalliance with Musk that they are now not only in play, but I think at least one of them will go blue. Yes, one of them will go blue, and there's only a 3-vote majority in the House. So this is cataclysmic for the House majority. That's one reason they told Stefanik she couldn't be UN ambassador, because they knew they couldn't hold her seat. Another red seat Trump knew he could not hold because of his mismanagement of the economy and the chaos in the government he's created.
Matt, David says they're flipping one district blue. What are your thoughts?
Well, there are your DNC talking points for the day. Thank you, David, for that. Look, these are both strong Republican seats. The fact that they were plus 33 and plus 32 Republican shows the power of incumbency. In spite of the fact that the Republicans have been outspent by 12 to 15 times, largely from money outside of the district, the Republicans will hold the seats. You know, as we say in baseball, even if you get a little dink single, it looks like a line drive in the box score. A win is a win. Republicans should be expected to hold on to both of those seats. If they don't, I think you're right. It will certainly send a warning signal across the bow to not necessarily to Donald Trump, but certainly to Republicans in Congress. And as for Elise Stefanik, she didn't run, or they withdrew her nomination primarily because Kathy Hochul had agreed to keep the seat empty for as long as possible. And with tight numbers, you're right, David, every vote counts.
Matt, on this, are Republicans worried at all about losing these seats?
I think that they're taking it seriously, but look, these are red districts. But I will remind people that they call them special elections for a reason, and that, you know, these will be low turnout affairs. They will largely be by people who are regular voters, and in part because both sides have a lot of voter fatigue. And it depends. If Democrats are motivated right now to send Donald Trump a message, I could see that the Democrats doing better than they would normally be expected to do. But I can pretty much guarantee you, or actually I will guarantee you, that 4 years from now, these seats will be back in Republican hands if they lose them. But I don't think the Republicans are going to lose either one in Florida. I'm more concerned about the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, personally.
And we'll get to that in just a moment. But David, Matt does mention there, you know, special elections, they do have lower voter turnout, lower voter enthusiasm. And there is this issue of voter fatigue right now. Do you think the Democratic Party has done enough to motivate their base?
Well, I'm a former assistant U.S. attorney and a working lawyer, and I haven't read any Democratic talking points on these issues. They just so obviously come to mind. And the Democrats are very motivated. How could they not be motivated? They don't have the House. They don't have the Senate. There are more and more Republicans going to be appointed to the federal courts. There's a 6-3 majority on the U.S. Supreme Court. Workers are losing their jobs. The civil service is being treated like trash. We're back to the political spoil system. We're back to patronage, because not only have these people been chaotically fired, arbitrarily fired, but Trump trumpets the fact that he's got 2,000 patriots that he's hired. So this is the old thing from New York City, where the Italians get, or the Irish get control of the city, and all of a sudden their political group comes in and the old political group is out. And that's exactly what Trump has reinvented in government. So why are Democrats inspired? Democrats are inspired because this is the chance to have a little chink in the armor, right? This is a chance to actually land a blow and to say, no, this is not okay. The tariffs, pulling out of all these international organizations, environmental policies, what they've done to the EPA. I probably left out the 5 biggest issues that are so in play between Democrats and Republicans. So this is a chance to actually have an impact because with 4 votes, that's all they need, 4 votes in the House. They run the House. They tell Johnson, get out of here. And the Democrat, Hakeem Jeffries, becomes the Speaker of the House. They're 4 votes away. That's why they couldn't take any chances with Stepanek. She's also near Canada. The Canadians now, we've turned into an enemy from being our best friend. Thank you, Donald Trump.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to take
4 years of Joe Biden and 73 days of Donald Trump, and look at the power that David admits that he has over the feckless, weak Democrats.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to take a look now at Wisconsin. All right. I mean, that race, it's shaping up to be the most expensive judicial race ever. Side, we're seeing her campaign using funds from George Soros. Now, both of these candidates, they've criticized each other for this funding. Matt, I want to start with you. Do you see this type of funding a concern at all to election integrity?
No, and this is not new to Wisconsin. If you'll recall, in 2023, there was a similar election. That election at the time was the most expensive Supreme Court election in Wisconsin. The Democrat won that race by 10 points, 55-45. But again, it didn't have an impact on the 2024 election because Donald Trump won the state, although Wisconsin voters ticket split. They elected Tammy Baldwin to the Wisconsin Senate or to the U.S. Senate from Wisconsin, and they also elected a 7-3 Republican House delegation from that state. I think what is interesting and the difference here is that, well, George Soros has stroked big checks for Democratic candidates like Susan Crawford. The difference being is that George Soros doesn't go and do rallies in Wisconsin. And again, this is going to depend on a couple things. One, it's going to depend on turnout, who actually votes. I read a really interesting article today that there are concerns among the Democrats that Black voters, which make up to 21% of the vote in Milwaukee area, they have nothing to turn out and vote at the polls for. If those numbers are down, it looks good for Republicans. But this race is really, really close. And with this much money being spent by both sides, I think it's anyone's to call it. All depends on who votes.
David, your take.
Well, Matt studied it more than I have. My bona fides on this is that my wife is.
Oh, all right, Dave. It seems we've lost David there for a second. We'll come back to him in just a moment. Matt, I want to ask you about your take on the concern that conservatives have had about the fact that if Susan Crawford were to win, congressional district maps could be redrawn to favor Democrats.
Oh, it's very legitimate. I mean, that's a main argument for the Republicans to turn out and vote is right now the Republicans in Wisconsin have a 7-3 vote edge in terms of the delegation. And if the state were to redraw district lines, there's speculation that the Democrats could squeeze as many as 3 more seats out, which would give them a 6-4 Democrats or Republican majority sometime as soon as 2028. So, I mean, everything makes a big difference in a closely divided House. And, on the flip side, the Democrats will argue that, a key abortion case will come up in Wisconsin and that they need a Democrat to fill that seat, which, by the way, right now, the Democrats have a 5-4 majority on that court. So this seat could determine which party controls the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
And building off of that, Matt, observers have been saying that these races, these elections in both Florida as well as Wisconsin, it's really a referendum of Trump's track record over the past, 3 months now of his time in office, and really a bellwether for the midterms. How do you read that?
Well, they are and they aren't. Look, if Trump wins everything, of course the Republicans are going to stand up and thump their chest and say, absolutely, Donald Trump remains strong. He remains popular. His agenda is working. If the Democrats win everything, I think that you're going to see the Democrats get a new sense of, hey, we aren't as bad off as everybody tells us we are. And then the Republicans will start to mildly freak out in Congress. What was more likely to happen is that the Republicans hold the seats in Florida, the Dems hold a narrow victory in Wisconsin, and both sides will find a way to claim some victory and move forward with hopefully some momentum heading into the 2026 elections. So again, I went back and say what I said earlier. They call these elections special for a reason, and that they are not really informative about what the electorate will look like in 2026. But both sides will try to claim some type of advantage from them. And again, if one side sweeps, I think that they legitimately can make that claim. But if they're divided, I think that both sides will try to say, here's why ours means more and the other doesn't mean as much.
Well, those election results should be coming out soon. We're going to keep an eye on that. It's a shame that we lost David Katz there. But Matt Klink, thank you so much for joining us today.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.